There's a peculiar weight to silence, isn't there? Not the kind that soothes, but the kind that presses down on your chest, heavy as a stone, until you're gasping for something, anything, to fill the void. My name is Elisa, and at 35, I've come to know that weight intimately. I live in a world that looks perfect from the outside, a glossy postcard of suburban bliss in Connecticut. But beneath the surface, it's all unraveling threads and hollow spaces. I'm married to Mark, a man of 38 who's carved his life into the sharp edges of corporate ambition. 8 years we've been together, bound by vows that once felt like promises, but now seem more like a contract I didn't read closely enough. Our marriage is a display, a holiday table set with precision, every napkin folded just so, every glass gleaming. But if you lift the tablecloth, there's nothing underneath but dust and forgotten crumbs. Our home is a colonial-style beauty, cream-colored walls glowing under the soft light of meticulously chosen fixtures, hardwood floors polished to a mirror sheen. Framed photos line the hallway, snapshots of smiles and sunlit vacations, but they feel like artifacts now, relics of a time when laughter wasn't just a memory. I walk through these rooms like a curator of my own past, dusting off moments that no longer belong to me. Mark's presence is a ghost in this house. He's at the office until the stars are high, climbing the ladder of success while I'm left holding the rungs of a life I don't recognize. When he is home, our dinners are a quiet ritual, the clink of silverware against porcelain the only conversation we manage. Our words, when they come, are transactional, bills to pay, schedules to sync, nothing more. I've become a shadow, trailing behind the man I married, his dreams so vast they've eclipsed mine entirely. I feel like a guest in my own story, lingering at the edges of a life that's no longer mine to claim. Sometimes, in the rare moments Mark speaks of his day, a name slips into the conversation. Ryan, a 36-year-old marketing strategist at his firm. It's always casual, a passing mention of a meeting or a project, but I've started to notice how often that name appears, like a pebble dropped into still water, rippling through the silence. I don't dwell on it, though. My mind is too consumed by the ache that's taken root inside me, a restlessness I can't name but can't ignore either. It's loneliness, raw and unrelenting, a hunger for connection that gnaws at me in the quiet hours. I've started to wonder if this is all there is, if my life will forever be this pristine, empty house, these silent meals, this invisible existence. I used to dream of more, of passion and purpose, of nights where the air between two people crackled with something unspoken but fiercely felt. Now I'm not sure I even remember what that feels like anymore. The drive to Boston felt like wading through a fog of unspoken words. Mark and I were in our silver SUV, the engine humming a steady tune as the miles slipped by. I stared out the window at the blur of trees and highway signs, my hands folded in my lap, while the silence between us grew thicker with every passing minute. The only interruptions were the occasional pings from Mark's phone, each one a sharp reminder of the world he lived in, a world I was no longer a part of. Work emails, I assumed, though I didn't ask. I didn't have the energy to bridge the gap between us, not today. My mind was already heavy with the weight of feeling like an afterthought, a piece of luggage he'd brought along out of habit rather than desire. We pulled into the city as the afternoon light cast long shadows over the streets, and soon we were checking into a hotel that felt like it belonged in a magazine. The lobby was all sleek lines and modern elegance, with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the bustling world outside. The air carried a faint scent of lavender and polished marble, a kind of artificial calm that did little to ease the tension knotting my shoulders. Mark handled the check-in with his usual efficiency, his voice clipped and professional as he spoke to the desk clerk. I stood a step behind, clutching my purse, feeling like a stranger in this polished space. Our room was on the 14th floor, A spacious suite that screamed luxury, crisp white linens on a king-sized bed, a sprawling view of the city skyline that glittered like a promise I knew wouldn't be kept. It was beautiful, but it felt like a cage. As soon as we dropped our bags, Mark was gone. He was swept up into his professional world, shaking hands with colleagues in the lobby, exchanging quick, purposeful smiles before disappearing into a conference room for a full day of meetings. I watched him go, the door clicking shut behind him, and the silence of the room swallowed me whole. I paced the suite, my footsteps muffled by the plush carpet, trying to find something to anchor myself to. I flipped through TV channels, the noise a hollow distraction, before turning it off again. I stood at the window, staring at the city below, wondering if anyone out there felt as lost as I did. In the bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror, my eyes framed by faint lines of exhaustion, a map of sleepless nights and unspoken worries etched into my skin. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. I tried calling Mark, hoping for even a sliver of connection, but his phone went straight to voicemail. My voice sounded small as I left a message, asking if we could have dinner together later, if he could spare just an hour for me. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, the silence pressing down harder now, a weight I couldn't shake. Hours dragged by, each one slower than the last, and the isolation wrapped around me like a cold, unyielding embrace. The late afternoon light was fading into a soft amber glow outside the hotel window when a sharp knock on the door jolted me out of my spiraling thoughts. I'd been sitting there, lost in the haze of my own loneliness, the city skyline a distant blur beyond the glass. My heart gave a little thud, not out of fear, but out of sheer surprise. No one knew I was here, not really, except Mark, and he was buried in meetings. I stood, smoothing my sweater, and crossed the room, the carpet soft under my bare feet. When I opened the door, there stood Ryan, Mark's colleague, looking effortlessly put together in a navy blazer and jeans, his dark hair slightly tousled, as if he'd run a hand through it one too many times. In each hand, he held a takeaway coffee cup, steam curling faintly from the lids. His smile caught me off guard, a warm, genuine curve of his lips, the kind I hadn't seen aimed my way in months. It felt like a lifeline, small but real, in the sea of emptiness I'd been drowning in. "Hey, Elisa," he said, his voice smooth, almost too casual. "I thought you might be stuck up here all day. Want to grab a coffee downstairs at the cafe? Just to pass the time while Mark's tied up." There was no judgment in his tone, no pity, just an invitation that felt like a breath of fresh air. I hesitated, a flicker of guilt sparking in my chest. Mark wouldn't care, would he? He hadn't even answered my call. Still, something about stepping out with Ryan felt like crossing an invisible line. But the weight of the empty room behind me, the silence that had been suffocating me for hours, pushed me forward. I needed this, needed something to fill the void, even if just for a little while. So I nodded, grabbed my cardigan, and followed him out. The hotel cafe was a cozy little nook tucked off the main lobby, a world away from the sterile elegance of the rest of the building. Small round tables dotted the space, each topped with a flickering candle that cast warm, dancing shadows on the polished wood. The air was thick with the rich, earthy aroma of roasted coffee beans, mingling with the faint sweetness of pastries from behind the counter. Soft jazz played in the background, a saxophone weaving through the hum of quiet conversations. Ryan led us to a table by the window, the city bustling just beyond the glass, and we settled in with our drinks. At first, it was easy, safe. We talked about the conference, the energy of Boston, little stories about the quirks of their workplace. His laugh was light, infectious, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I found myself smiling without forcing it. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, then two, the conversation shifted. It wasn't deliberate, not at first. It just happened. I found myself opening up, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I told him how disconnected I'd felt from Mark, how our life together had become a series of motions, a performance with no audience. Ryan listened, really listened, his hazel eyes fixed on mine with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty platitudes. He just nodded, as if he understood, and said he'd noticed the distance between Mark and me during the few times we'd all been in the same room. His voice was low, almost a whisper, like he was sharing a secret just for me. And then, in a moment that felt both inevitable and terrifying, he reached across the table. His fingers brushed against mine, warm and steady, and I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The contact was electric, a jolt that woke up every dormant part of me. My breath caught, and I knew I should have moved, should have said something to break the spell, but I didn't. I let it linger, let myself feel seen for the first time in too long. When we left the cafe, the pretense was thin. He suggested we keep talking, maybe back in the room where it was quieter. And I agreed, knowing full well what I was stepping into. I'm lying here in the dark, the hotel room a suffocating cocoon of shadows, the sheets twisted around my legs like they're trying to hold me in place. Sleep is a distant stranger tonight, pushed away by the relentless replay of that moment. Mark walking in, his face a canvas of betrayal, the way his eyes, those deep, familiar eyes, shattered with hurt. I can still see his shoulders slump, a silent surrender, as he turned and closed the door behind him with a click that echoed louder than any scream. My chest aches with the memory, a physical pain that claws at me, refusing to let go. I've been staring at the ceiling for hours, or maybe it's only been minutes. Time feels like it's unraveling, slipping through my fingers as I try to make sense of how everything fell apart so fast. After Mark left, Ryan didn't stay long. He stood there for a moment, his presence heavy in the charged air of the room, before muttering something about giving me space. His voice was low, almost hollow, as if he knew there was nothing left to say. I didn't argue, didn't ask him to stay. I just watched him go, the door shutting again, sealing me into this oppressive silence. Now it's just me, alone with the weight of my choices, the quiet so thick it feels like it's pressing against my skin. I can't escape the image of Mark's face, the way it crumbled, the way I broke something I didn't even realize was still fragile between us. My mind keeps circling back to that split second when our eyes met, a silent accusation hanging there, sharper than any words could ever be. I've gotten up more times than I can count, my bare feet cold against the carpet as I pad to the door, cracking it open to peer into the empty hallway. Each time, I hope, desperately, foolishly, that I'll see Mark standing there, ready to talk, ready to let me explain. But the corridor stretches out, silent and indifferent, the dim lights casting long, lonely shadows on the walls. It's empty every time, a void that mirrors the one inside me. I close the door again, the soft thud a reminder of how alone I am, and shuffle back to the bed, the weight in my chest growing heavier with each failed attempt. My phone sits on the nightstand, a lifeline I keep reaching for, even though I know it's useless. I've called Mark over and over, my fingers trembling as I dial his number, only to hear the cold, automated voice of his voicemail. Each time I leave a message, my voice cracking like brittle glass, words tumbling out in a messy plea. I beg him to come back, to just talk to me, to let me make this right somehow. I tell him I'm sorry, over and over, until the words feel hollow, even to my own ears. But there's no response, no sign that he's even listening. The silence on the other end is worse than any rejection. It's a void, an absence that cuts deeper than anger ever could. My body feels like it's betraying me too. My eyes burn, raw from the tears that keep coming, no matter how much I try to hold them back. They streak down my cheeks, hot and relentless, leaving a salty sting in their wake. My chest is tight, like a vice is squeezing it, guilt wrapping around my ribs and refusing to let go. There's a bitter taste in my mouth, sharp and acrid, like regret has a flavor all its own. I can't shake it, can't wash it away, no matter how many times I swallow or press my lips together. It's a constant reminder of what I've done, of the line I crossed, of the warmth I sought in a moment of weakness that's now left me colder than ever. As the night drags on, I find myself curled up by the window, the first hints of dawn creeping over the city skyline. The light is pale and hesitant, painting the buildings in muted grays and soft pinks. A new day that feels like a mockery of the mess I've made. I sit there, knees drawn to my chest, staring out at a world that doesn't care about the storm raging inside me. The morning light grows stronger, casting long, jagged shadows across the hotel room, slicing through the dimness like a blade. I'm still by the window, but now I've moved to the bed, the crumpled sheets a testament to my restless night. My hands are unsteady, trembling like leaves caught in a bitter wind, as I clutch a small folded piece of paper I found slipped under the door sometime in the early hours. It wasn't there when I last checked the hallway, and the sight of it made my heart lurch. A silent message in a world of noise I can't seem to escape. I know it's from Mark. It has to be. Has to. Who else would leave something so personal, so raw, in a place like this? I sit there, cross-legged on the bed, the paper resting in my lap like a grenade with the pin half pulled. I'm terrified to open it, to face whatever truth lies inside, but I can't ignore it either. The light spills over my hands, illuminating the faint creases in the note, and I finally muster the courage to unfold it. My fingers fumble, clumsy with dread, and the paper crinkles softly, the sound deafening in the stillness. There, in Mark's familiar, precise handwriting, are the words that cut straight through me. Now I know what I've lost, and what I'm guilty of. I read it once, then again and again, each repetition driving the knife deeper into my chest. My breath hitches, a sob catching in my throat as the weight of those words sinks in. He's not just pointing fingers at me. He's owning his part in this wreckage, admitting that he pushed me away long before I ever strayed. It's a confession, a mirror held up to both of us, and it shatters me in ways I didn't expect. Tears spill over, hot and unrelenting, streaming down my face as I clutch the note tighter, the edges crumpling under my grip. I'm breaking apart, the guilt and pain I've carried since last night exploding into something I can't contain. I think of the early days with Mark, those fleeting golden moments that seem like they belong to someone else's life now. I remember the way we'd laugh over dinners we'd accidentally burned, the kitchen filled with smoke and our shared giggles, not caring about the mess, because we had each other. I can still feel the warmth of his hand in mine during long drives to nowhere. The windows down, the wind tangling my hair as we talked about dreams that felt so close we could touch them. Those memories flood me now, vivid and cruel, reminding me of how far we've drifted. I see the slow fade, the way his career became a wall between us, how I became invisible in the shadow of his ambition, and how I let myself slip into a moment of weakness because I was starving for something, anything, to feel alive again. The guilt is a crushing weight, pressing down on my shoulders, making it hard to breathe. I betrayed him, sought solace in a fleeting connection that I knew was wrong, and now I'm paying for it with every tear that falls. But there's something else mixed in with the shame, a strange, bittersweet relief. Mark sees me now, even if it's through the lens of pain. He knows what he's lost, just as I do, and for the first time in so long, I feel like we're on the same page, even if it's a page stained with hurt. I glance around the empty hotel room, the silence still suffocating, and my eyes land on Mark's suitcase in the corner. It's still there, untouched, a quiet sign that he hasn't completely walked away. Not yet. That tiny detail sparks something in me, a desperate flicker of hope, and I know I can't just sit here drowning in regret. I have to find him. I have to face him, no matter how hard it will be, no matter how much it might break me all over again. I'm on my feet before I can second-guess myself, wiping my tear-streaked face with the back of my hand as I slip into my shoes, the laces feeling like they're tying knots in my stomach as much as on my feet. I grab my purse, the note still clutched in one hand, and head out the door, determined to track Mark down. But as I wander the hotel corridors, check the conference rooms, and even linger in the lobby, there's no sign of him. The bustling energy of the place feels like a cruel contrast to the emptiness gnawing at me. Hours pass, and with every empty corner I turn, the weight of defeat settles deeper into my bones. I've lost him, at least for now, and there's nothing left to do but return to the room. Back in that suffocating suite, I start packing my things, each item feeling heavier than it should, like I'm folding away pieces of my own heart. My hands tremble as I zip up my suitcase, the sound of the zipper a harsh, final note in the quiet. Every shirt, every pair of socks seems to carry the memory of the trip here, the hope I had, however faint, that Mark and I might reconnect, and the devastating reality of how I shattered that possibility. I move slowly, deliberately, as if prolonging the task might delay the inevitable loneliness waiting for me outside these walls. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in with every breath, and I can't shake the image of Mark's face, the hurt I caused, the trust I broke in a moment of weakness. When I finally drag my suitcase to the lobby to check out, the clerk behind the counter offers a polite, practiced smile, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I force a nod, my voice barely above a whisper as I confirm my departure. Her kindness stings, a reminder of how alone I am in this mess, how no one else can see the fractures splitting me apart. I hand over the key card, my fingers lingering on it for a moment too long, as if letting go of it means letting go of any chance to fix this. But there's nothing left to hold on to here, so I turn and walk out into the crisp Boston air, the weight of my suitcase dragging behind me like an anchor. The drive back to Connecticut is a blur of gray highways and muted thoughts, the silence in the car as oppressive as it was on the way up, but now it's suffocating in a way I can't escape. I grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white, my mind replaying every mistake, every choice that led me here. The radio stays off. I can't bear the intrusion of music or voices when my own thoughts are loud enough to drown out the world. Every mile feels like a step further from Mark, further from any hope of mending what's broken, and yet I keep driving, because going home is the only thing I know to do right now. When I pull into our driveway, the sight of Mark's car parked there sends a jolt through me, a mix of hope and dread twisting in my chest. My heart leaps, pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. Maybe he's here, waiting to talk, waiting to face this with me. I fumble with my keys, nearly dropping them as I rush to the door, my suitcase forgotten in the trunk. I step inside, the familiar scent of our home hitting me like a wave. Wood polish, a hint of the lavender candles I used to light. A life that feels so distant now. "Mark?" I call out, my voice echoing through the empty hallway, fragile and desperate. There's no answer, just the hollow sound of my own plea bouncing back at me. I move through the house, checking the living room, the bedroom, even the small office where he sometimes hides away with his work. But he's not here. The silence is a cruel mockery, heavier than ever. In the kitchen, I stop short, my breath catching as I spot another note on the counter. This one longer. The paper folded neatly as if he took his time with it. My hands shake as I pick it up, the weight of it somehow more daunting than the last. I unfold it slowly, my eyes scanning Mark's familiar handwriting, each word a fresh cut. He writes that he's staying with a friend for a while to give them both some space to think. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.